Come on in. It's time for Coffee with Scott Adams. Did everybody see the debate last night? Are you all watching the analyses coming in? Let's talk about that debate. Get your coffee. Yeah, world's most boring debate, wasn't it? That was a snoozer. A lot of undecideds chose Trump as the winner. You know what that tells me? That a lot of undecided people were never undecided. Staying away from media spin. Just Starbucks coffee. Podesta was speed dating. What's that mean? He was calm and presidential. All right, let me give you my takeaway from the debate. I blogged about this already this morning, so you could read the same thing. No sound. Sound is good. Some people saying sound is good. Some people can't hear it. Must be a problem on your end if some people can hear it fine. All right, so here's what I think. From a persuasion standpoint, people don't care about policies. They don't care about fact-checking, blah, blah, blah. None of that mattered. They care about what touches them emotionally. So if you look at the emotional content from the debate, I don't think Trump added much at all. He talked about things like WikiLeaks and emails and the Clinton Foundation. And you know what all of those things have in common? People don't fucking care. They have no emotional content to any of that. And I think that people have decided collectively, in part because you watch shows like The West Wing and movies about presidents that you like, you know, even presidents who are your heroes, and they're trading favors and they're doing things behind closed doors that they wouldn't want you to know about, and there's some dirty tricks in the campaigns and all that stuff. I think that when you look at a career politician, you just have already factored in that they do that stuff. So everything that you're finding out about Clinton is stuff that confirms what you already thought, but also didn't care about too much. You know, you didn't really care that she traded some favors, that she's got good connections with countries that have bad policies that you don't like, you know, that there's some money's floating around that probably influenced them or at least gave them access. You already knew all of that. None of that's new. None of it makes any difference at all. No emotional content. What you did care about, and by the way, if you ask any Clinton voter, you know, why are you voting for Clinton? What do they say? Do they ever say, I like her stand on TPP or gun control? No, they never talk about her tax policy. They never talk about her policies at all. They always say the same thing, and you could try this. You know, go to any Clinton supporter and say, why do you prefer her? And she will say, Trump is a crazy, sexist, racist with a bad temperament. All right, that has a lot of emotional content. All right, so all Clinton needed to do last night at the debate to win is to stand upright, stay vertical for 90 minutes to show she's healthy enough, which she did. She didn't look totally healthy to me, but she was healthy enough. And she needed to act like she had a command of the facts. You know, nothing's changed there. She's the more well-informed person on the stage. And she did that. No surprise there. And she didn't make any big mistakes, which would have been the big story if she did, but she didn't. And so you think, well, she's steady and consistent and a little bit boring, but she knows her facts. So she did everything she needed to do. But more importantly, the best part of her debate performance, the persuasion part, was where she was talking about Donald Trump's horrible alleged sexist, racist, unstable temperament stuff. Because she got real emotional and, showed real concern there for the country, even though it was fake. So on a persuasion level, Clinton actually won, I think, quite easily. However, although it was an easy win, it wasn't a big win because Trump just had to show that he wasn't acting unpresidential, which he did. He just acted like he was a little more presidential than before. What's frozen? So anyway, so Trump succeeded in acting calm, not getting too far out of the pocket, etc. And because he was calm, what did the media and the pundits do afterwards? Yes, they decided that the thing that was most important to talk about after the election is the thing that I watched the election and I didn't even think was a thing. It was like the least important thing I heard. It turned out to be the big topic, and that was that Trump said he wouldn't necessarily say in advance that he would accept the election result as fair and unrigged. Now, that happens to be consistent with everything Trump has ever said about any kind of leverage, negotiating, etc. He keeps all of his options open until he doesn't need to, right? Yeah, and people are making the Al Gore comparison, but it doesn't matter in this case because this has nothing to do with reason and facts and logic. It only has to do with how the opposition can frame you. And if they say, hey, he's acting like this big, dictator type strongman, and he's not even going to accept the election, does this mean civil war? And it doesn't. All it means is that Trump, at most, wants to reserve the right to complain if he loses, right? Because in some ways, the ultimate result for Trump, if you think about it, for what would be best for him, would be to lose in a close race that he's pretty sure was rigged. That would be the ultimate, because then he could say he actually won, but he doesn't have to do the job. Because who wants to do the actual job? That's terrible. So he wants that option, right? He wants the option to say it was framed. Now, if you think that it can't be framed or won't be framed, I would suggest that you probably also thought that about the debates. You probably thought, the debates are not rigged. That would be too obvious. Somebody would get caught. But if you haven't seen it already, go to my Twitter feed or Donald Trump's Twitter feed, where he links over to his Facebook page and a video of Megyn Kelly interviewing Donna Brazile. And Megyn Kelly asked her, did you give this exact question from CNN to the candidate, to Clinton, and her denial is as much of a confirmation as you could possibly give. So her answer was so bad, it was effectively a confirmation that the debate was rigged, at least in that way, in the sense that she gave them the question in advance. So if you didn't think a debate could be fixed, and you were wrong, the debate was fixed, at least in that way. It was rigged. We don't know how much more, but it was rigged in that way, at least. What else? What else don't you believe? Do you not believe that this country, with lots of different types of vote counting, lots of different counties, thousands and thousands of different personalities, and most of them, at least on the Clinton side, have been convinced that Trump is the next coming of Hitler? So you've given people all the motive they need to rig an election. All right? In the past, people might prefer their candidate, but they don't quite have the same motive. All right? It's a different motive, isn't it? If you just prefer your candidate, you still also prefer living in a republic with a democratic, process underlying it. So you would still want the vote to be honest, even if you preferred another candidate. But not this time. Not this time, because Clinton's team has successfully framed it as an honest candidate, as funny as that sounds, running against this horrible monster. So that's all the moral cover you need to rig an election. You'd actually just feel good about it. You wouldn't even feel like you did a crime. You'd think, my God, I've helped the world. I've saved the world by rigging this election. And as I've said before, in every situation where you have lots of motive, a big upside, which you have here because people think they're saving the world from Hitler. That's the biggest upside you could possibly have. Where you have opportunity also, and obviously there's opportunity because there are a lot of different vote counting systems. The votes from individual places get batched up and then sent to central places. In lots of those places, there's software involved. Software in the original counting machines must be software again where they put those individual results into bigger results and sum them up. So clearly, there are lots of opportunities for throwing away ballots at the source or rigging them later after the software gets involved. There are lots of opportunities. What we don't know is how big those opportunities are, whether those will be small things or big things. We can say in the past that they've been small, but that doesn't mean anything about now, because we never had Hitler running before, never had this situation, never had this much incentive to rig an election, have we? I don't think we have. So in this case, if it's possible, and you know it is, and there's a huge upside, and you know there is, and there isn't that much chance of getting caught if you do it right, and that's probably the case, you have all the variables in place for nearly a guarantee of a rigged election, a near guarantee. The only thing you don't know is how big the rigging will be. Yeah, I think Kennedy did steal the election from Nixon. So rigged elections are not unusual in our history, and in this situation they're nearly guaranteed. And you know how else you know that a rigged election is nearly guaranteed? It's because the media has decided spontaneously and coincidentally that they're going to talk about Trump's statement that he won't accept the results. It's because they know the results are going to be questionable. They don't know, how much it would be rigged or if it matters, but they know it's going to be questionable. And it will be. So you think the independents liked Trump? Are you talking about the Frank Luntz group, or did you see some other poll? Yeah, winning the focus group doesn't seem to make much difference, does it? I haven't seen the second Veritas thing yet, but I think all of the little crimes that Clinton has committed are going to be a big nothing. What's the second one about? 14. So the thing you have to watch out for is, I think people who say they're independents are actually just secret Trump supporters at this point, because I just don't think the undecideds really exist at this point. There are people pretending to be undecided and pretending to be independent, but people have already decided at this point. Rasmussen has Trump up. Oh, his second video shows how the voter fraud works. Well, that's interesting. But you could prove voter fraud. You could have it on video. You could have everybody admitting it, and maybe that's what the video is. It wouldn't make any difference, because you know what's happening is people just look at the emotional fear that they get from Trump, and they go, "I'll take the crook." In a contest between a racist and a crook, people are going to choose the crook. So Trump has picked the losing hand, going after Clinton for her corruption. He can prove his case to both Trump supporters and Clinton supporters. He can convince every single voter that Clinton is a total crook. But as long as she convinces them that he is or might be a racist, she still wins. Crook beats racist every time when it comes to the vote. How can he frame Clinton as worse? I don't think he can. I think that unless she's unhealthy, or there's some new information that we haven't seen yet, that that will make the difference. Now, I heard something interesting on Fox yesterday. It was just a little tidbit. I didn't see the actual source of the data, but one of the correspondents said that the number of undecideds has actually grown toward the end of the election, which is the opposite of what you expect. You expect people to start making up their minds, and there are fewer and fewer undecideds until the last day. But apparently there are more undecideds. Now, let me tell you how to interpret that. No one's undecided. No one is undecided. All right? All those people who have moved into the undecided camp are decided people who are just parking their vote because they're scared to admit it. I don't think anybody believes that polls are anonymous anymore, even online polls, even voice polls over the phone. No one thinks anything's really anonymous because the government can check anything it wants to. So how would you like to be linked as a Trump supporter when he's being accused of such heinous improprieties? But there may be a lot of people hiding who just prefer him as in office, and they don't care about that stuff. So there is no doubt a large parked vote for Trump that's going to spew out on Election Day. So I'm sure the polls are misleading in terms of how well he'll do. Whether that's enough, I think it depends on the next 3 weeks probably, and whether we have any new surprises. Hillary laughed at gays being thrown off buildings. No, she has that awkward laugh in the wrong times. I think just people are used to her awkward laugh at the wrong time. And I think that they knew that she wasn't laughing at that. You're parking? She did laugh. She laughed, but at the accusation or at the ridiculousness of the claim about her, not about the events themselves. Will she get out and campaign? I don't know. You're in London? I'm not in London anymore. Yeah, I got up early. I just got off the phone with WND in Chicago, a radio show, to do a post-debate analysis. Hillary kept clearing her throat. I did not hear that. Does it matter what CNN and others say? Of course it does. How will he win if he's down in all the polls? Well, he's not down in all the polls, for one thing. But like I just said a moment ago, you may have missed that a lot of people are parking their vote with Gary Johnson and even with Clinton, I would assume, because they just don't want to take the chance that anything they say to a pollster is not as anonymous as they would like it to be. So Rasmussen is always favorable to Republicans. I saw a list of which polls are most accurate after the fact, and I think they were somewhere in the middle. They were neither the best nor the worst. He's only up in tracking and down in non-tracking. The non-tracking polls also have a sample issue, right? They oversample Democrats and oversample women. So here's what Trump has working for him. There is a slow drip of this WikiLeaks stuff. I don't think it's as important as people would like it to be. But more importantly is that we're starting to get used to everything that Trump does. and we're getting used to it more quickly than we used to. So it used to be that if you did something horrible, it would take us a month to get over it. And then more horrible things kept coming from both sides, and there was just so much horrible stuff that you sort of had to get over the last horrible thing in more like a week or two. And now, toward the end, there's so much happening so quickly, you have to get over your outrage, the last outrage, in about a week, because there's a new outrage and a new one and a new one. So if you, and I think I made this mistake, by the way, of assuming that the outrage over the Access Hollywood tapes would last a month, and that would get you through Election Day. But it's possible that we've been so worn down by all the scandals, and there are just so many of them, and they all seem so bad, that any one of them just sort of gets lost in the mix now. So it's possible. She called leeches in a new WikiLeaks. Now that would be interesting, but it won't move the needle at all. I don't think anything that comes from WikiLeaks is going to make any difference, because it doesn't have a picture to it. It's just too conceptual, and it sounds too lawyerly to say, well, there was something in a document once. Nobody cares. Don't have any opinions on Tony Schwartz. The picture of WikiLeaks is Donna Brazile. Yeah, in a little way. Who'd she call a leech? I'll bet you're telling me that out of context. The IBD poll has Trump up 1, but what about the key states? Is he up in that or just nationally? The nasty woman remark. You know, the nasty woman remark had no impact on anybody. That's just I like to use this phrase, the pearl clutchers. That no matter what Trump did last night, the only thing you could say for sure is that anything he said that was even slightly could be interpreted as provocative, the left was going to say, there he goes, it's a meltdown, he's completely going off the racks, he couldn't stay on track, on message, he's crazy. And it wouldn't have mattered what he said. He could have said everything in a monotone and talked about only policies, and they would say, there was that one time he sniffed just at the right moment to show that he's out of control, he's off the rails, he's having a total meltdown. By the way, I don't know if you noticed that. People were saying that to me in Twitter the last couple of days. I was tweeting a lot, and one of the things that the left always does is they like to say you're having a meltdown. So if you say, if you tweet more than 3 times in a day, somebody's going to come in and retweet you and say, Adams, look at this, a total meltdown because his guy is not winning. And so as the trained persuader I am, I do what I call a high ground maneuver on those people. So I just tweet back and say, if this looks like a meltdown to you, life must be very frightening. You must be frightened by everything. So that, by the way, is the high ground maneuver. When somebody says, you're melting down, you just return it and say, if this looks like a meltdown, you must be frightened about everything you see in life. Because people don't want to act like they're frightened. And so it forces them to the high ground of, well, this wasn't so frightening after all. It's no big deal. Yeah. So if you see that, if somebody does that to you and says, you're in a meltdown, calm down, the immediate answer should be, if this looks like a meltdown, you must be frightened about everything that happens in your life. Are you continually worried about meltdowns? Are you worried that the computer in front of you is melting down? Is it turning into metal right in front of you? Is it just going to be a bunch of plastic right in front of you? Is it all melting down? Are you worried about the light bulbs? Are they going to melt the room? Is the room in a meltdown? So what you do is you just make the meltdown thing look ridiculously small. And when I tried it online, people just went away immediately. Anything Trump can do to dispel the racist label? No, not at this point. But interestingly, he could, and I don't think he's going to do this. I'd love to see him come up with a policy that only helps African Americans. Just a pure transfer of money. And I think I was talking about this on another Periscope. If he thinks he's going to lose, and by the way, he might not think that. They have internal polling. His internal polls might show that he's winning. So he might not need to do anything. That's possible. But if he said, just imagine this, and I said this the other day, just imagine this policy. So Clinton is saying a free college for everybody. And that's very popular for people who want free college. But suppose Trump said look, I'm going to put the emphasis where it is needed most. Young white people are getting into college fine. White women in particular are getting into college in higher numbers than men. But the biggest problem, and the problem where I'm going to put the most money, is I'm going to make college free, just free, for any African American for 25 years. And after that, we'll phase it out, right? Maybe in the 26th year, it's, 3/4 of a scholarship or something, phase it out. And the idea would be that it's a once ever period in American history where we acknowledge that the African American experience is not like anybody else's. And that for 25 years, we're going to give them, a little bit of an advantage in one specific way that you have to work for. So it's not a freebie. I mean, going to college isn't easy, right? So if you can get anybody to go to college, it probably pays for itself. I mean, just imagine this. Yeah, people would call it reparations, and that's what makes it so clever. Imagine a Republican making this argument. And again, this isn't going to happen, but it's just fun to think about. Imagine he said free college for African Americans for 25 years. That's my plan. But unlike most things, it's going to pay for itself. Because if you could make, a big dent in, the employment opportunities for African Americans, if in that period you got a lot of additional African Americans in management who could then, presumably might be better at hiring more African Americans because, they would be less biased in their hiring, et cetera. So you would create lots of opportunities, lots of jobs, even for the people who did not go to college, because it would create more of a base of opportunities for everybody if there are more African Americans who are succeeding. So I think it would pay for itself. And it wouldn't be the most expensive thing we ever did. It's also defensible. Now, people would get hopping mad, but the people who are mad are the racists. And the racists are still going to vote for Trump, right? So he's not going to lose the racists. But he might carve out some people on the other side who said, yeah, I am worried about him a little bit, but I like free college. Who doesn't like free college? And, I think that would be like the most clever thing anybody ever did. He will lose Cruz voters. Don't agree. Tell me somebody who doesn't agree. Tell me why it would be a bad idea. Who would he lose? Yeah, you can never sell a plan that has huge growth, because nobody believes the huge growth. What if you don't want college? Remember that some of these things are perceptual. Am I a Jew? Who is asking that question? And why in the world is that relevant? I'm not, but why is that relevant in this conversation? Intellectual ghettos. Yeah, so I didn't see anybody give a reason why my idea of free college for African Americans for 25 years, limited, would be a bad idea coming from Trump. Yeah, there's a real issue about getting through high school for sure, but um, limited subjects. It's racist. That's why. Yeah, that's why it would work. It would be racist in the opposite direction. So it would be, you know, the old rule about the news is that um, dog bites man is no news because dogs bite people. But if a man bites a dog, that's news. So if Trump does something that doesn't help African Americans, that's not news. But if he does something that clearly helps them and is at the expense of, let's say he just taxed the rich. Let's modify this and say that Trump says, I'm going to tax the rich, but for only one reason, for helping the African American community for 25 years have free college. Nobody argues against taxing the rich except the rich, and there aren't many of us. And how would you not talk about that? Make it 15 years? That's negotiable. I think 25 sounds like a generation and a half. And I think that's important because you need that generation also to have real jobs and to be, you know, in a position to hire new people. Everyone I told you I did to said it was genius. There would be open revolt. I'll bet there wouldn't be. There wouldn't be open revolt because people would still want Trump to win, and it would be a way to do it. What about other ethnicities? See, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? If he were to unfairly focus on one ethnic group, I think, first of all, he'd have a good argument, because they have a good argument. There's nobody whose experience can be compared to the African American experience. I mean, nobody's coming from the same, you know, background of slavery. So there is nobody you can compare. But people will, and all that's going to do is reinforce what Trump has been saying, is that let's just treat everybody like Americans. The KKK would end up supporting Clinton. That would be funny, and you might be right. Like Indian gaming, it makes sense. Yeah, actually, that's a good analogy. Good leap past the current crap. Yeah, imagine what would people say if Trump suggested free college for African Americans for 25 years, followed by, we'd like to have free college for everybody, but we're going to work on that slower. It's harder to do. Yeah, Trump won the undecideds, but that's a trick. Remember, that's a trick. There are no undecideds. Those are people who are just looking for a reason to like him, and he didn't do anything horrible during the debate. Just Clinton seemed a little bit more competent at the debate itself. Yes, considering that Trump would win if he just gets 10% more of the African American vote. All right, let me give you another idea. Let me put this out there. This is a joke idea, but it might work, and that's why it's fun, right? A year ago, before any of this Trump stuff got too serious, I said that if he got close toward the end, he had one secret way he could win. Does anybody remember what that was? I'm going to test you. A year ago, I said he had one secret, one thing in his bag, one final, lever to pull if it got close. There's one thing that Trump could do that would win if it were close, and it is close enough that this could make a difference. Does anybody remember what it was? Shave his head. Exactly. But I'm going to add to that. So if he just shaved his head, that would get a lot of news and stuff, but it wouldn't be enough. But now let me add to this. Let me say that Trump says, if I get whatever the number is, 20% of the African American vote, I will shave my head the day after Election Day. Think about it. Let that sink in. If he says the day after Election Day, if I get 20% of the African American vote, whatever would be enough to put him over the top, even if I don't win the election, if I just get 20% of the African American vote, I will shave my head on camera the next day. Right? Think about it. Think about it. Yeah. Now you're saying to me, black people are not going to, go for that. It makes them look bad, and people don't vote for reasons like that, etc. But the thing is that we're talking about emotional voting, right? People vote for emotional reasons. And I think that people actually would appreciate the opportunity to humiliate him in public. I think people would see it as an act of non-arrogance, which is terribly important. People see him as arrogant. They see him as putting himself above other people. And I think it would be this tremendous show of humility, but also strength, because obviously if he gets that much of the vote, he's going to be president of the United States. It would be almost irresistible. Like, you would sort of want to vote for it just to see it, wouldn't you? Now, we would like to think that people, and here again, I'm not going to talk about African Americans in particular, just people in general, are emotional voters. We vote for emotional reasons. And if Trump said he would shave his head the day after Election Day if he got 20% of the African American vote, I think people would be influenced by that. I really think they would. Maybe not a lot. Maybe 1% would move it, but that's a lot in this election. Already let Fallon mess up his hair? Yeah, that helped a little bit. He would look like a cancer patient? No, it wouldn't matter, because under this scenario, he's already won the election, right? So once you win the election, you look good no matter what you look like. Because why not? He has nothing to lose, right? Right. The thing you worry most about Trump is that his ego rules him. Right? You think his ego rules him. So if he said, I will shave my head if the African American community gives me their trust and gives me 20% of the vote, that's all I'm asking. Give me 20% of the vote, and I'll give you free scholarships for 25 years, and I'll shave my head. Boom. President Trump. It's not so much that they would want to humiliate him, I said that, but let me say this better. I think that it would be a show that he would put other people ahead of his ego. All right, now, whether that's true or not, it would just feel like that, right? It would be, you would have the sense for the first time that his ego is controllable, because he has so much of his ego symbolically in his haircut, that if he said, I will shave this frickin', this bird's nest right off my head if the African American community gives me their trust and I get 20% of the vote. That's insulting, Scott. It's insulting. It's insulting in the sense that humans should not be irrational voters, but we all are. His power is in his hair, maybe so. Anyway, I'm not too serious about the shaving his head stuff. But I like to talk about it it's self-deprecating. Twitter update. I haven't heard anything from Twitter. He values power over his hair. I think the more people talk about his haircut in the last week of the election and don't talk about anything else, the better off he is. Yeah, so letting people, shaving his head would look like, being more a man of the people. It would be like he could put his ego, he could control his ego and put the people ahead of it. That's what it would look like. But yeah, people would complain and say it was insulting. And by the way, I would say the same thing no matter which group he was trying to influence. So I know somebody on here is going to say, you're saying negative things about African Americans, but I would say the same about any group that was against him. If he could identify them and say, hey, I'll shave my head if I get your support. So it would be the same. He shaved Vince McMahon's head. Yeah, you're right. Do you have a third idea? These first two aren't doing it for me. Well, those first two are not going to happen. So, yeah, I don't think most people are going to change their vote for it. But I think you would also find a lot of people who are not African American who might find it appealing just because he was willing to put his ego aside. Right? It's the thing you worry about him, is his ego, his narcissism. He just has to say, I'm sorry. Maybe. The trouble is, if someone like Trump says he's sorry, I think that's a trap because he does so many things he would have to say he's sorry for. It would be a never-ending path. So for most people, they do one thing bad, and if they say sorry, they're all good. But Trump is continually being asked to apologize for every other thing he says. So in his specific case, an apology isn't as easy. Persuading women to vote Trump. The only way to Trump might actually lose voters if he shaves his head. How so? Because people like his haircut? Or they would see it as too much of a trick. Why did Hillary make the 4-minute nuclear comment? Because it makes real the size of the risk. I thought that was actually a good play on her behalf. I realize everybody's saying, hey, you're telling people our 4-minute secret, but the fact is everybody already knew that stuff. Nobody thought it was going to be half an hour. Nobody thought it was 30 seconds. So 4 minutes is probably what everybody assumed anyway, roughly speaking. And by the way, that doesn't even mean it's right. It doesn't mean it has to take 4 minutes. The worst dials of the night is when he said he respected women more than anyone else. How did this get on Black and White? The question was, how can he make a difference in any of the groups that are wildly against him? And that would be women and African Americans in particular, the two biggest groups that are against him. You're welcome. The Trump kissing booth. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, how can he win women? I just don't think that's possible. I don't think he can win women now. How can she... Something to make her drop out? That's not going to happen. All right, I think I'll go watch that Veritas vid. All right, so I'm taking off now. I don't think you can find any tapes with Clinton saying the N-word. That's wishful thinking on your part. It's a weird kind of wishful thinking, but it's wishful thinking nonetheless. All right, take care.